heard someone moving my mic, and I was like, oh. Outputs are all good.
Oh, I know the story. I have yeah. Orange.
Like a.
Oh, well, you probably got the mic to the answer. Yeah, it's interesting. All bands, though, like, whenever I have maybe I can
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it'll probably be hot enough. This isn't my favorite setup, but it works.
Yeah, and I trusted you because you put yours there. Usually I would never do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would usually put the microphone like up there.
Yeah. No, usually close to the speaker. Yeah. I might end up moving that person.
Cummings, Michael Deering, Michael Doyle, Donald Fox.
Hello. We'd like to welcome everybody to our candidate. I'm Sarah Ibsen, 7th grade social studies teacher. I'm Meredith Vaughn, 7th grade English teacher. We'd like to acknowledge all the hard work of our 7th graders. So if you are a 7th grader and you're in the audience, can you please stand up to be recognized? are so proud of all of the work of our seventh graders and their effort, and we're so excited to see all of you here tonight. Please turn off your cell phones at this time. We'd like to invite the Senate candidates up to the stage, and also Zoe Warner to kick off our program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zoe, and I will be one of your announcers and moderators today. The candidate forum hosted here at Harwood Middle and High School by the seventh grade students. This forum will be a chance for candidates for the Vermont Senate and House of Representatives to tell us a bit about themselves and their actions if they are elected. This forum will be split into two parts: the Senate portion first, followed by the House session. There will be a 10-minute intermission. My name is Kia. All the questions you'll ask have been generated by our seventh graders, candidates. Each of you will have one minute to answer. I would like to introduce Ann Cummings, Michael Deere, Michael Doyle, Donald Koch, Andrew Birchland, and Ann. Thank you all for coming tonight.
My name is Mike. We will now begin with our first question. After each candidate has answered, another student will pose the next question. We'll start with Julie asking your first question, and Carter answers first, handing your next. Hi, as you know, my name is Julia. What qualities do you have that makes you a good candidate for office?
I go first. I'm Ann Cummings, and despite where I'm sitting, I'm a
Yeah,
Democrat.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
My
You have to
father-
press the button and your mic will turn on.
Okay. Okay, I'm Ann Cummings. I'm a Democrat, despite where I'm sitting. I have been in the Senate for over 20 years. I know a few things. I chair the Finance Committee, and my greatest skill that makes me good at what I do is that I like bringing people together, find solutions. And to me, that is the heart of democracy, that everyone can come together, talk about the issues, be heard respectfully, and find answers that work for everyone. No one gets everything they want all the time, but everyone gets something as move forward. And I hope that people will continue to allow me to represent them. I do love my job.
Thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Michael Deering II. I'm a current city councilor in Barrie, two-term city councilor in Scotland. I currently work at Barrie Elementary School as a transportation sub-coordinator. And in that role, working with students and faculty and the rest of the community is really important to me. Being involved in a community is really the reason that I'm involved in politics at all. Knowing that my community is important for my family to continue to live here, that's the biggest reason that I continue to be involved. Is that our family, our young people like you all here in the audience, keeping you all involved here in Vermont is very important. It's also crucial to the consistency of our state. So to me, being a father of four, being a football coach in our community, being involved so much, it's one of those where money in your mouth is. You see things going on, you see the need, and I'm one of those people that try to rise to the occasion to see that need.
I'm Mike Doyle. I'm a native of Montpelier, Vermont. I spent about 20 years in other places. One of those was Easton, Pennsylvania, where I spent 10 years on the school board in a city about the size of Burlington. I also knew Senator Bill Doyle rather well. I was his driver, his chauffeur for about 20 years. And I learned a thing or two from the good senator. I don't know about the young seventh graders, but I do believe that most of the adults in this room and Senator Doyle was an inspiration to us all. I learned from him three principal things. The first is civility. We're going to succeed in running our affairs with a political process. We have to be civil toward each other. Another time.
I'm Donald Koch. I'm a lifelong resident of Barrytown. In Barry, Vermont. I learned about leadership in the Boy Scouts. I attended Johnson State College where I majored in psychology, and I studied under Senator Bill Doyle, taking his legislative processes. I've been around politics all my life. My father was a Barrytown representative for 22 years, and it's kind of in the blood. But I'm also a business owner and a truck driver by trade. I've been running my own trucking company out of Barrie for about 10 years now. And I think that gives me some experience in dealing with business.
So I'm Andrew Perchlik. The four qualities that I came up with was interest/curiosity, and I mean that in a policy sense. I study politics and was very interested in policy and politics for as long as I can remember, and interested in all sides. So I like to talk to my Republican colleagues and get ideas on how they're thinking of things, how they came up with what their positions they have. I just have a lot of interest and curiosity. I think that's a good quality to have in a legislator. I've experienced both as a legislator. Is it already over a minute? Okay. Never mind.
Watson, and the qualities that I have that I think qualified me for being a senator. One is that I was the mayor of Montpelier for many years, for about 4.5 years. And that was actually not the first thing I thought of. The first thing I thought of was that I think I'm a pretty good listener. I don't mind hearing dissenting opinions, having conflict. But what I do really appreciate is being able to come together with people that have differing opinions and be able to find solutions. I'm a very solutions-oriented person. That's the second thing I think that I think is important. It's probably also worth mentioning that I am a teacher. I teach high school physics and engineering and math, degrees in physics. And so I'm a union member and I'm also a mom. I think all of those identities are important to have represented in the legislature. Thank you.
In our survey of community members, school funding was on the top of many people's minds, and is on the mind of many Vermonters. What are your thoughts on how Vermont should address school funding?
I guess we're starting with me again. I chair the Finance Committee, and we are responsible for the Education Fund. School funding in this state it's local communities that vote and then decide how much we should spend on our education. And then the legislature takes out all the money that is dedicated to education, and we set the property tax rate to raise the rest if there isn't enough. This year, people voted to spend about 15 to 17% more, and property taxes went up a whole lot. I'm presently serving the Commission on the Future of Education, and we are looking at cost drivers and other issues. I think before we're finished, we're going to be looking at perhaps other revenue sources, and we're going to be looking at our small schools and if they are in fact able to provide the best education that kids need and deserve these days.
Education funding is crazy and out of control right now. We see that especially coming from the Barrie Unified Union School District, where it took us 4 votes to get the school budget passed. To me, I feel like we need to go towards an income-based tax instead of a property tax where everyone's contributing. So from the highest earners to the lower earners in proportion. So that way we're not having a tax burden on just the property owners and then pass perhaps on to the renters. We need to have a more equalized system. And really we need to change the way that education funding sounds. That the education funding, the formula is crazy. Talk about long-term weighted people, talk about averages, that people just don't understand how it works. And we need to make it so that people understand how it works. We need to get more people involved as well, so that way they understand how the system operates.
Well, before we make any conclusions about how we're going to fund the system, we should take a look at economizing the system. We are paying about $400 to $500 million more than we ought to be paying, according to a recent study by a company called ICUS. We are the 5th. Little Vermont is the 5th highest spending state in the union on a per capita basis, approximately $16,000 per pupil, and like you said, says that it should be approximately $12,000 per pupil. I would look at economizing rather than changing the structure.
I fully agree with Mike Deering and Mike Doyle. 49 other states fund their schools in a different way than we do. And largely they have better results than we do. They do it much more affordably and you get better results. And that is truly sad. We need to fully examine the system, and we need to consider how we balance maintaining local control while engaging in some more consolidation. We have 14 counties, perhaps we should have 14 school districts, less administrations. Our school districts are top heavy and bloated. We need to increase our class sizes of, what is it, 8 to 1, I believe, student to staff ratio, or staff to student ratio, I mean, isn't sustainable.
I think I agree that the property tax focus and the property tax increases that we all experience is unsustainable. We can't continue to have that kind of property tax increases. We expect the property taxpayers to keep supporting our schools the way they have. So I agree that we need to focus on it. It will mean some hard decisions. The discussion you're having in this district valley with some of the small elementary schools. How do you deal with that? The community really don't want to close these schools. It's the heart of their community. And that's going to be the hard choices we make about reducing spending to reduce the overall tax burden. All for trying to switch to the income-based system hurts the renters because now they don't pay property tax now, but they don't pay an income tax. And landlords can agree to rent or they still pay on because we will still have a property tax on commercial property. So I'm very interested in lowering the property taxes but still supporting our schools as we.
Yeah, I agree that where we are at right now is unsustainable. And one thing that I feel like we need to keep in mind as a North Star for this whole thing is what's best for kids, especially in terms of when we're talking about or not to close schools. So that's, I feel like has to be the guiding principle as those decisions are made. But practically speaking for the adults in the room, those who are paying taxes and property taxes, the solutions that come to mind. One, I'm not opposed to an income based tax for education. I think that might be useful. I think that's a big change. I think something that we could do this year is tax second homes at a much higher rate. I think we could also yes, I think we could also, there are other things we could do, like looking at healthcare for teachers, reference-based pricing, and petition Medicaid to pay for mental health for kids.
Thank you.
My name is Willow. The Summit District is just over 62,000 people. According to redistricting data from 2022, how do you imagine our communities at their best? Communities at the best. Starting with animals.
Okay, I'm having trouble hearing the question.
The Summit District is just over 62,000 people, according to redistricting data from 2022. How do you imagine our communities at their best?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I think we need to be addressing is housing. That's maybe that's something we're going to be talking about later, but it's absolutely a need across the district for sure, and it affects all parts of, well, it affects many parts of our lives, everything from workforce development to homelessness to, just being able to have, places to, for working families to live. So that's one thing, but I think every community in the Washington district is a little bit different and has different needs. And so I think one of the keys is being able to hear well the needs of the different communities and be able to address them. Whether that's traffic, stow, or the issues with the schools in our various communities. Like there are lots of different issues that we're trying to address. So I think people to navigate a lot of issues is important.
So I like to remind folks that the district is 21 different towns and 2 cities. It's a very diverse district, Soda, Orange, Braintree, out in Cabot. I live in Marshfield, so I have affinity for some of the smaller towns that surround the Barry Montpelier area, and the Stowe, and the Valley. They're all very different. So I think these communities at their best have their own self-governance and self-control. I very highly value local control, and I think that's one of the issues that we have to talk a lot about with education, because we value local control to the point where all the schools get to vote on their budgets, but then we send that out to the state to set the tax rate, and that disconnect is a problem. But I really want to support towns, and particularly around flooding. I think towns have not had the support they need, small towns, rural district, and that's something we really want to work on.
Yeah, so I'm from Barrytown. Barry City, are mining and manufacturing towns. Uh, Valley is tourism. Stowe is tourism. We have a lot of different industries. Our forestry and our maple syrup, our dairy farms. But I think what ties us all is the Winooski Valley, the River Valley, and we all know recently what's happened with flooding and how we need to work on flood resilience and riverbank stabilization, mitigation, maybe even some dredging, because we have places that have been flooded multiple times in the last several years, and we just can't continue to live that way.
I think the best way to promote growth in any situation is to remove as many cumbersome regulations as possible. One of the principal reasons we are having a housing problem is it is so difficult and so uncertain and so costly to build anything new in our state. Thank you. Remove unnecessary regulation, stop this, raise taxes, create regulations, and spend money philosophy of government have been living on too long.
How do we imagine our communities at their best? To me, it's when they're thriving, when they're growing, together as honors. I mean, that's why we're all here. We're all from honors, and we have an interest in the state. So to me, it's when families are growing, when we're able to expand, when we're able to really thrive. I love that word, thrive, to grow. To see crime increasing, we need to also have more access to mental health and substance use resources. And when people aren't doing well, they rely on substances to get themselves through instead of better coping mechanisms. In school setting, become a trauma therapist, that's my end goal. And really, the world is facing problems that we've never seen before, with catastrophes constantly, and we don't know how to really deal with them. So many people turn to the best way or the easiest way they know how, drugs or alcohol, sometimes it's eating, sometimes it's exercise, those different things. But to me, it boils down to quality of life and affordability.
The creation of the Senate and the House is modeled on the federal standard. Because whoever you elect will represent cities like Barry and Montpelier, small farming towns like Marshfield and Cabot, and tourist centers and ski areas. The Senate is by design more deliberative. We have to take into consideration what's best for all of those different constituencies. It forces us to really think through a problem. I don't just represent my town or my two towns. I represent 3 different communities. We're always working to find out what will work best and to make our communities those thriving places where we want to be.
Hi, my name is Naomi. Affordability is a problem for many people.
What do you think the root cause of the problem is, and how would you address it? Many, affordability is a problem for many people.
Well, we have already talked about property taxes. That is probably the single biggest check that family writes in the course of the year. So I think that has that feels like a big pressure for affordability in Vermont for sure. We've already talked about that though. So in addition to that, inflation that we've seen in the last couple of years being significantly higher than it had for the prior couple of decades. That was really hard. It drives up the cost of everything. And there's not a lot that we can do necessarily about inflation, but it's good to know that is healthcare is also a major driver for a lot of people. There's a lot of data to suggest that that medical debt is a driving factor. I guess I should say that medical expenses are something that a lot of families avoid. And if they do get an influx of cash, there's often they spend it on otherwise deferred health maintenance. And I am out of time. There's more I can say.
I agree with what Senator Watson just said. I think the other thing I would add is housing. That's a big cost. The housing shortage is causing prices to go up, whether you're a renter or homeowner. It's causing these other problems that cascade through society that affect affordability. So I think we definitely need to build more housing. We really have a 10-year plan. Just some money next year is not going to do it. So it's a 10-year plan to build a lot more housing. That's now different kinds of housing. That's going to a lot of housing costs. And on property taxes too, when I was on the select board in Marshfield, we worked really hard to keep the town's property tax down. I think one of the things that we need to be aware of is state mandates on small towns and how that affects the property tax. We talked about the property tax for education tax. I think we also need to help small towns with their infrastructure costs.
So the way things have been working the last several years under credit control, all our problems, they just want to throw more money at it. They keep raising our taxes in a different direction. They just added a new payroll tax. They're going to tax our heating fuel, double the cost of that. They're coming up for our transportation fuels next. All the costs of these socio-environmental policies. Straw that breaks the camel's back is near. We're almost there. We need to focus on helping businesses to come to Vermont and to succeed and grow the economy rather than just taxing us to death.
The way to fight inflation, and that is the principal problem that we're having, is to increase the supply of goods. That will bring down the price of goods. How do you do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is to decrease the price, lower the price of a vital supply that all other supplies depend on. We are doing exactly the wrong thing talking about taxing the price of fuel and the price of heating oil. All other prices are measured by these. If you are able to lower these prices, there will be more money for more people, and more people will be able to afford things more readily.
Affordability. First one to me is put people in place that didn't increase your DMP 20%. I mean, that's money right there on the table. We talk about affordability. We need to build more houses. So that way we can also have people in those houses. But we have jobs that need to be filled. We have an economy that has opportunities, but without housing, we can't do that. Something that I've looked at Barrie City Council is Phil Scott has a program that he's trying to get through a 5-year freeze that helps with tax stabilization. Now that particular program, a little different, but in my opinion, what we could do is increase taxes on that, so you pay the base of the property value before you build on it, and then you get a 20% increase till you get to that 100%. So if it takes 5 years, at that point, you get 20% increase every year. You start off with the base of the land, and you continue with the property. That allows people to build it cheaper and not have that huge upfront cost.
I chair the tax committee, and we have not even discussed putting a tax on fuel, especially home heat. So I don't know where that's coming from. I think we need to realize that we only have so much money. Really, the only way we can raise that money is through taxes or fees. It's went up at the DMV because the governor kept voting or signing increases in pay, but a lot of fees that pay employees go up, and if you wait, it has to go up a lot. I think housing is probably at the base of all of our issues, and so we need to find a way, and we put $800 million into subsidizing. The problem naturally is you can't afford to build a house that the average worker can afford. We need to find a way to subsidize that and grow our tax base.
Yep.
Now we will have a 10-minute intermission. There is a bake sale, and we'd appreciate your support for our housekeeping for the Washington Chittenden districts. We understand some of you here may not live in the aforementioned house districts, so if you can't leave for the summer portion and would like to step out and back, if you choose to leave, please consider filling out the exit poll with the QR code on the screen or speaking with one of our students outside the auditorium. Thank you and enjoy your
All right, we'd like to invite. Now we will begin our House Representative portion. Dean Fafano, John Burns, Dara Torre, and Candace White. Tonight are Keith Danahan, Jonathan Griffin, Thomas Stevens, and Teresa Wood. James Haddad was unable to join us. Thank you all for coming tonight. Start with Noreen. First question. Dean Fafano answers first, ending with Teresa.
What qualities do you see yourself that make you a good candidate for office? Oh, sorry. What qualities do you see yourself that makes you a good candidate for office?
Very good background. I had 38 years as a volunteer firefighter, rescue EMT. Each one of those places I've risen to a place where I can control and change things. I had 45 years in corporate America where I was really faced with really tough challenges in my life. I served in the Marine Corps, which actually taught me how to understand and overcome obstacles. Served quite well. I have a degree in Bachelor of Science in Marketing and Business, and I also have an associate's in electronic engineering. I can use those to solve problems. I'm a problem solver. I look at all the things available and try to understand all sides of an issue. I've heard a lot of things where people are talking about income tax based this and that, but they don't really understand the demographics of Vermont. They don't understand economics issues in Vermont. So they make statements that sound good, but they're really irrelevant because.
Good evening. I am a humble Clarkenberg, an old worker. I also spent in the Army officer. That became a. And anyway, that gave me a lot of experience that I otherwise wouldn't. Now, and I'll try this microphone. So I got to do a lot of things that I otherwise wouldn't have done in my careers or would work. I worked myself into a specialty niche job of being the staff advocate in the Army to say, wait a minute, stop, what are we doing? Slow down, let's rethink this, let's use some other capabilities before we have to go and do what an Army does and people get hurt, things are broken. So I was the voice of not doing that. And that was not an easy thing. It was kind of uncomfortable at times, but I think that's what's needed in the job right now in the State House, especially as an outsider voice, to say, wait a minute, let's rethink this. Why aren't we doing things differently? Also, just
Hello, everyone. I am really happy to be in this school with you all. One of the reasons I decided to run is because I have a really strong passion for our public institutions, like our schools. And I worked really hard when my kids were in school to make our curriculum engaging and interesting as possible, and volunteered a lot with the parent-teacher organization. We wore a lot of hats. While I lived here in Moortown, working in the valley over the years in different ways, in different populations. And I have a background in history and government, my education, and in climate change and public health. And another big reason I wanted to serve was to bring my passion for climate transition and resilience building in our community into the State House because I feel like we're not doing enough to secure our futures.
Hello, everyone. I'm Candace White. I'm running as a Democrat for House of Representatives. And some qualities that I think will serve me well in this job. I'm going to repeat some of the adjectives that other candidates have used, but I think I'm a problem solver. I'm a good listener. I'm respectful, and I think that's really important. You know, you're going to hear from all different types of people and hear lots of different points of view. And I think it's important to share different ideas, but to do it in a respectful and positive way, and to work together to really try to solve problems and make things better. In terms of my experience, I've been a leader in business, in the business sector. I've worked in communications and marketing for 20 years, and I've also been a leader in some nonprofit agencies. I think all those qualities will have me as your representative. Thank you.
I want to thank the seventh graders for doing some. You guys are fantastic. I want to say that this is an amazing event, and I hope you guys are proud of yourselves. And I hope you're listening to what everybody has to say. And I think that's the job of us with civic engagement, is to try and hear both sides, to hear how people feel affected by the decisions that we make, by the policy that legislation makes. And the quality that I have is I really genuinely care about people. I believe that I'm a great person. That I want what's best for as many people as possible. And I'm a critical thinker. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I'm a civil engineer. I spent a lot of time driving around the state supporting lower income homeowners. Than under over 1,000 manufactured homes in our state. So I've spent all over. And affordability is driving, it's a driving cause for why I'm running. I think I'm good to serve in the legislature because I care deeply for people and I care deeply for solving problems.
Well, for coming out tonight and having us here. This is truly special. We have had such a forum with students and their parents. This is awesome. My name is Tom Stevens. I've served for 8 terms in the House and the last 6 as general in housing. And so this idea of the qualities of what I bring to the table is seeing the work that I've been able to get done in the State House with my peers, because it's not anything that happens by oneself. I came to this over 20 years ago when I started serving locally, and it became clear that I wanted to participate in passion for hearing people talk and get through the problems that needed to be solved. As a former, well, no, not as a former, as a middle child, it was really important for me to not have conflict every day, and that's what I stress for and work for while I'm serving in the House.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Teresa Wood. I live in Waterbury. I am the chair of the House Human Services Committee, and I've served in the legislature for 9 years. First off, I want to say I'm a proud graduate of Harvard Union High School. I'm school here. The other things that I want to say that I think in terms of qualities that make me well qualified to be a state representative are things like a sense of humor. You need to have a sense of humor when you're solving difficult problems. I believe in consensus building. When you chair a committee, you have a variety of different opinions on your committees, and you have to bring people together, and a diversity of ideas on the table, talking it out, really leads to solutions. I have a lot of community service under my belt. I was chair of the school board in this district for 12 years, and I have a lot of other community service. So I really am interested in Vermonters' well-being. So thank you.
name is Camille. In our survey of community members, school funding is on the top of many people's minds, and it is on the mind of many Vermonters. What are your thoughts on how Vermont should address school funding?
We don't have a whole lot of time to discuss this, but the whole funding system is broken. And actually what happened is when Vermont created its education system in 1790, it has to change over time. We went from an agrarian society to what we have, tourism, big towns. So what we need to do is just peel back this and truly understand what these issues are. We can talk about all income tax. Well, we have to understand that only a third of the population is employed. And out of that third, 22% are over 65. So I don't know who you tax. Second homeowners, so we're paying 38% property taxes. Homesteaders, 21%. The rest is already coming out of the general fund. So when you people talk about doing this and doing that, we really have to cut spending. That is the only solution. We have to really think about how we organize the school system so there's this economy of scale of work.
So, school funding.
So not to go into all the details of it, but there are solutions. Answer. I think a lot of people just don't start the conversation in the State House, and we just go along with the status quo, and that's why it's been an issue for 27 years now since the Brigham decision. It's been band-aids and fixes over those years, and everybody agrees. Or anybody say, well, it works pretty good, suggest this and that. So, starting with the possibility of just starting over, laws can be repealed. I've learned enough in 27 years. It's a piece of each law to make one system that works. The idea of local control is kind of a myth. That could be removed, adjusted. Spending limits, how about just a property tax cap like 46 others have in some form?
I will agree that our system is not functioning well. I think what I'll add to what has been shared already is that I believe how we approach the changes we need to make as we are becoming an older society and we have fewer children in our state. We do need to do some changes in how many schools we have and our schools. But the important thing to me is how we make these changes. I don't want to make rash decisions that are going to hurt students and teachers and communities. I want to do this right. And I think we're on the right track to do that. We have a lot of really good people working on this right now, including the superintendent of the school. And we're going to get this right. We're going to do it with the interests of students driving all our decisions, and we'll figure out the funding, and that's what really matters.
So on school funding, I just want to acknowledge that we're in Harwood and we're talking to a group of students, and it might be a little uncomfortable to talk about school, cutting school costs, but I just want to say that I support the schools. My children, went through the public schools here, but I do think that there is a way to re-envision how we're funding schools and to do it in a way where we actually can improve the outcomes of our schools. And I'll agree with, there have been a lot of comments about school funding reform, but I believe that it needs to be blown up and redone. It's not working for our county. I also think that we need to look hard at costs. I don't think the solution is more money, more money. I think we need to look at how we're spending, look at it critically, and and figure out a different way to fund it and to prioritize.
So in the engineering world, I deliver bridge projects for a living, and we always start every project with what we call a scoping session, where we try and set our expectations for our outcome. And I think that's how I would start. I would ask folks to design what they think is the final end state of our statewide education system. What does our ideal system look like? And then let's work backwards from there. Not everything can probably say it. We should start with what we believe to be our best product of high quality education, and then work from that. Maybe it means starting from scratch. Maybe it means creating school districts that are more geographically representative, getting more density of students based on where those schools are located in those districts. I don't know what it looks like, but I would start there. And I just want to say that my children are in the district. My kids come to this. And I support education. I think it's important, but you guys are the students. You can be involved in this as well. And I think you probably have the best look at day in and day out on maybe where efficiencies could be made in your education system. So.
It's important to remember that funding schools equitably is a constitutional requirement. What happened in 1796, it has changed immensely since our state. The conversation about how to fix the funding system, especially in time of declining enrollment, you have to take into consideration that if the state comes to you and says, we want to close Facein School tomorrow, do you think Facein is going to accept that very easily? This is an intensely human industry. The teachers deserve to be treated with respect and not as something compromised. Students should be treated with respect and the outcomes that we're looking for, and should not simply be compromised. And so I'm looking for the work that we've already instituted to come up with not necessarily all answers, but the directions that we have to get into in order to look at the system wholly and holistically, so that we can make improvements so that it stays sustainable.
First off, I want to say that a solid, well-funded, well-provided public education is the foundation of our democracy. And we need to make sure that that is something that is not undermined. At the same time, we have 20,000 fewer students in our state. That number continues to decline. We have not taken a look at the structural issues in our education system. There are going to be difficult decisions ahead. That is something that we, whoever is elected in the legislature, will need to deal with. And the Brigham decision was intended to provide the quality of opportunity for students across the state, regardless of where you live, regardless of the income of your family or of your school district. And frankly, it's not doing that. There's a very significant divide and disconnect between the education funding formula and the people who vote on the budgets and pay for it. And we need to do something to bring those things together.
Our communities have been impacted by flooding several times in the past decade. What do you think?
Well, my family's been personally impacted by flooding during Tropical Storm Irene, and I headed up to rebuild Waterbury in Tropical Storm Irene, and we had 105 families get back into their homes, into safe housing. And some of the things that we need to do are really talk about how we make our communities more resilient. We're not going to pick up and move whole communities away from the rivers on which they were built. So we need to figure out ways to improve our floodways where rivers can flow into areas that don't impact homes and businesses the way they do now. There are lots of things that we can do in terms of mitigation. The state, frankly, has not focused on. We've focused on getting people back into homes and repairing, but we haven't focused on resiliency. And those are the things that we need to focus on because there are going to be more and more weather events like we've experienced. And so we're going to need to be able to rebound back from those and not just recover from them.
Also, living in Waterbury Village, I've seen my neighbors get damaged. Flood in July show that more between Waterbury and Waterbury, Moortown, Woodson were hit with a little bit less water than a year ago. But it proves the point that Wood was just saying: the state has not taken on a more serious and ingrained way of dealing with resiliency. Resiliency to me is simply the ability to bounce back. We've had family members in Waterbury who have really suffered the third or fourth flood event, and their mental health, their stress levels through the roof. And the way that we can help mitigate that is by listening to them, finding out ways that we can help their neighborhoods. This applies to everybody in this district, every community that was hammered in this district. And we need to do better with that, to invest in that, not only financially, but in creating a world where we have professionals who are working to help make it so.
This is a topic I would love to talk about for a long time, being a civil engineer. So I've been around the state. I've seen the flooding. I've been working with V-Trans since 2010. I was employed during tropical storm Irene down to the Bravo area in southeastern Vermont. So I've seen the devastation both in our communities, but also statewide through my work. And it's complex, right? We've got lots of things we've got to control, runoff, floodplains, flood activity, debris, resiliency of homes, and there's a myriad of different ways that happen to solve, and not any really solution we can answer. We have to employ all of them. We have to employ private money, public money. An example I gave in one of these other forms is flood insurance is incredibly expensive. If there were a revolving loan fund that allowed people to basically apply for a 0% interest loan, list their home, and then pay back that loan with their flood insurance savings, get a flood insurance certificate. That's something we can do to employ private dollars and put all the public to work. So I would love to talk about this with folks.
So on the subject of flooding, yes, we've had that in I was canvassing in face-to-face last week and talked to a number of people who had lost a car, driveways, in one case a house. So change is happening and we're all suffering from it. What I see that I feel really hopeful about is some of the work that has been done in our local community with the Mad River Valley Planning District. And recently, the planning district shared a presentation that they had put together after Hurricane Irene, and showed what we learned from Irene. First of all, the damage that we suffered, what we learned, and how we built back differently. And that was building a pocket park where there had been a building, moving the town offices, etc. So I think it's really important that we learn from these flood events, share our information, make changes, and keep doing that. And I understand Waterbury's got a really strong flood resiliency program, and I think we could, we should be sharing information together.
So when we convened in January, we got right to work supporting the communities that have been impacted prior flood, July 10th. And I was on the Environment and Energy Committee. It's my first term. Had a lot of really big planning-related goals that we've been working on. And I have a background in local and regional planning. So to me, resilience, a foundation of it is good planning, and it's planning at the watershed level. And it's also money. So we do need a durable source of funding. We were able to find money to help people in the towns, but it was one-time money, and we really need something long-term because we know this will happen again. And I like the idea of private and public to do that. And I like the idea of working together across towns to protect ourselves.
So the first speaker that answered this question, I heard them talk about state is not focused on. And in terms of flooding, the state is not focused on that. This falls under the umbrella of climate change. And I think the state is focused on things like global warming solutions, clean beach, which are, again, that's a part of it. So we're focused on that. We're not focused on immediate, right here at home flood mitigation. Things can be done and need to be done. Julie Moore, the Secretary of A&R, has said we need to start looking at adjusting rivers and floodplains. And she said, sounds funny coming from the A&R Secretary, but that kind of thinking is evolving. I like that New Orleans has found ways to hold the ocean back in terms of if they get another catastrophic event. So I think there are things we can do and we should be focusing on very intently right here in Vermont to help Vermonters.
I have to agree with a number of the speakers that have spoken. You know, we've been talking about school funding, we're talking about housing, we're talking about all these issues. The people who have been in the legislature, that's what they do, they talk about it. We need to change. We need to bring in people who are going to have fresh ideas and ways to solve these problems. As John said, by the way, I'm going to said it before, I'll work with anybody to solve any problem as long as they read their philosophies and what ideas are. But the state has looked at it and they came up with a whole plan. They can only do 3% of their money. Does that sound familiar? We don't have money for school. We don't have money for flooding. We don't have money for mental health. We don't have hospitals going down the tube. So we need to have people and stuff prioritize every cent and reinvest it into where we need it today. Whatever Vermont does in global warming is tremendous. We have other actors. It has 1,142 coal burning plants and they're putting 17 more in. We need to focus on today and work on strategies to prioritize for all our needs.
Thank you so much. According to the Vermont public, Vermont needs at least 24,000 more homes in the next 5 years to be committed. What is your vision on how to solve the housing crisis?
One of the things I think that you've heard the senators speak about is the amount of money that federal COVID relief money as well as state funds that that we have put into housing, and it's closing in on $1 billion at this point in time. In this last budget that we are under right now, we have almost $160 million in various investments in housing, from substance use housing to general assistance for people who are homeless, housing to rehab, funds to rehab existing buildings, all up and down the income scale. So the House did have a plan, a 10-year plan. You heard one of the senators speak about we need a 10-year plan. The House actually passed a 10-year plan. And unfortunately, it did not get reported in the Senate, but we will continue to go with that. We're working with housing providers, we're working with builders, we're working with funders, and the state will need to provide some incentives to do that. So, but we will go back at it again. We did pass a bill this past year.
As chair of the housing committee, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart and has I've served. And it is not an easy nut to crack, as Representative Wood mentioned again. We've spent $43 million, not just in building, but also in rental supports through all of the necessary funds we've had to people who are experiencing homelessness during COVID and beyond to this day, where we're seeing some very difficult times. We have passed laws recently that have made zoning a little bit easier for housing to get built, for more dense housing to be built in places where there's infrastructure, like in downtown Waterbury, or in any place that has a water and sewer district. And we will continue to fight for this 10-year plan, which is very expensive. The question of where to raise the money hasn't been answered. So all of this is going to take a great amount of money. It's going to take a great amount of time. The hardest thing that we have in front of us is developing this kind of public policy when we're dealing with private property. It's a very sensitive way to work.
This is another one I'd like to talk about for a long time. So housing is probably, in my opinion, probably the most solvable. I think that we need to get out of the way as a state. I think we should let municipalities and private investors handle the system they do it better than the state can. I own a couple of rental properties. I've been in the construction trade. I understand the cost. I have a whiteboard in 10 minutes, so we can go through some of these developments, how to cost drivers, how to influence them, and how to bring them down, because there are ways that we can do that. 25,000 across the state is a very manageable number. You can't flip a switch and it can't happen overnight. It'll take time, but it's finite. It's something that we can actually talk about and making progress on. Driving housing costs down would help us in all other ways, right? That takes a large portion of people's income. So increasing supply, reducing costs, we know that works. Other jurisdictions, other states have done that. They've proven it, and I think that we should try that here.
How to solve housing. So I am echoing some of what the other candidates have expressed, but I'd really like to see housing built by bringing together developers, nonprofit groups, regional development corporations. I served on the Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation board for a number of years, and I chaired that board for a while. And there are regional development corporations all around the state that are nonprofit agencies that they know a lot about state funding, federal funding, and they also know about all the businesses in their area. So, if we had an all hands on deck housing project and pull these regional development corporations in so that we could fast track and connect with architects and builders and landowners, I think we could really make some change. But it would be collaborating across a lot of different groups.
Yeah, and I would say that I agree that a lot of initiative could happen on the local level because we do know our communities best, and we want to be able to empower local developers to work in their communities and overcome the obstacles. Some of them might be regulatory, and we are working on making it easier to build and less expensive in terms of permits and things like that. So the big concern I have is that we don't have the right type of housing for the size of our families now. Our households are getting smaller, and we don't have enough of those smaller types of properties. And we also don't have enough housing for people as they get older who may no longer want to live way up a dirt road in a house that's hard to maintain. And we don't have places for them to go. A lot of people as they age have to leave our community instead of staying here. So I would like to see ways to focus on that.
So So at a forum the other night, the question came up, what your background, and I said, what first thing I did when I got out of college was I bought a house. It gave me stability and foundation. That would be impossible today. I couldn't do that. I know I couldn't, and we're in a high school forum. I think high school kids in a couple of years, you're gonna have a hard time doing that. It might be impossible, I don't know. But these are the kind of things that you have to say to get the conversation started. I think the adults have failed. This generation coming up is just trying to start a family, establish themselves, and it's a pretty normal thing. Get a house and move on from there. So it's the thought and the idea of we really need to change things drastically. We're locked in the Act 250 mindset, and it's preserved Vermont and kept it beautiful and green, but there's nowhere to live. And some of the people I talk to say, where are my kids going to live when they grow up? So it's changing that mindset of we have to preserve things to this degree that no one has a place to live. That thinking has to stop. That's the first step.
I agree a lot with what I've heard. First of all, I want to get everybody to understand the government doesn't have money. We have the money. So anytime you hear the government saying, we need to spend $3 million, $30 million, $40 million, we're talking about how they're going to spend our money. That is probably one of the reasons why we're having such a time with affordability. So getting directly to the issue, we want developers to spend their money, not our collective money. And there's ways to do that. As mayor of my community, we work with developers. We came up with plans and systems. But the only way you can do this is to understand what the problem is. I can go up to Williston. There are 8 3-story apartment buildings, probably 15 apartments in each building. You drive down 117, you see houses being built. Warren, in our valley, 40 houses were built in 2 years. So what we need to do really is identify what we need to do. Dara said it perfectly. What kind of houses are we going to build? Are we going to build garden apartments? Are we going to build this? So you need people who can sit down with a whiteboard, draw out this group, this group, this group, we need this type of housing at this cost, and then go for it. Right now, all we do is talk, and I'm not that kind of person. I'm a problem solver.
Thank you to all 13 candidates who have come here tonight to support our school and the community. We would like to thank everyone who has contributed to this forum, including all of you in the audience who have made this an amazing experience for our 7th grade classes.
We hope this has helped with any pressing questions and curiosity about the very exciting upcoming election in November. Before you leave, please take a couple minutes to fill our exit poll. Students will be reviewing and analyzing the data in math class. Thank you for coming. Have a great night, and make sure to stop at the bake sale on the way out.
Very good.